on a suit and act dignified. Like the thieves and robbers that dress in suits and tell lies. You wanted him to be like that. He's telling lies, all right. And you're angry because he's your reflection. He's an anomaly. You can't make him what you desire him to be so that you can say, oh, that's my president. He wasn't made that way. God has him here. What did you say, Farrakhan? Do you think that God is not interested in who is president of the United States of America? Especially when it's out of the time of evil? It's in our time now. You Muslims who are present, in the Quran, God and Satan are having a talk, and God is saying to Satan, I've judged you to be erring. Satan knows he's wrong. Any devil knows they're wrong. So God said to Satan, as Satan asked him, respite me, delay my doom. Because Satan was doomed from the day he was made. And God said to him, surely you are of the respited ones. And Satan responded to God by saying, I'm going to come after them in your straight path. I'm going to come to them from their right, from their left, from before them and behind them. I'm going to make them all to deviate. Yes, sir. Did you notice that President Trump got in an argument with the Pope? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. What kind of man is he? That he would argue with a man that every president of the United States would go to Rome and kiss the ring. But not Donald Trump. Have you considered these things? The Pope said, well, he's wrong because he's building walls instead of bridges. That's a nice thing for you to say, Pope Francis, because there's a wall that you all have built that walls you off from the poor and the destitute. How could you say he's wrong for building a wall when Nicholas V, a predecessor, signed a papal bull giving the kings of Portugal and Spain the right to come into the Western Hemisphere and take the resources of the indigenous people, and if they would not convert, kill them. Then wall them off in a reservation. Wall us off under segregation. Wall our people off in South Africa under apartheid. You've been building walls, not bridges. So President Trump called that a form of hypocrisy.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You have no right to condemn him, he said, for building a wall or telling him he's not a Christian. Suppose I told you that you are not Christian.
Right.
How could you be? 2,000 cases of pedophilia before the Vatican? How could you be? But we don't have the right to say to you, sit down. But Christ
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
has that authority.
Yes, sir.
No masquerading in his name. The masquerade is over. So when I decided to rebuild the work of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, I went around in Chicago and asked for the blessings of black leaders and opinion makers and pastors. I got the blessings of John Johnson of Ebony and Jet. I got the blessing of Father George Clements and Father Flager. I got the blessing of Lou and Georgia Palmer. I got the blessing of black people who meant something to black people.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
But when it was heard this month, 40 years ago, on Cottage Grove Avenue at the Institute of Positive Education under the guidance of Hakeem Madhubuti, that I was going to rebuild his work, some of my brothers who once followed Elijah Muhammad were talking about taking my life.
Yes, sir.
So one of my friends, Ronaldo Glover, who is a lawyer and was the husband of Sonji, formerly known as Sonji Clay, the first wife of Muhammad Ali.
Yes, sir.
I met in their home with Al Reynolds and Glover, and they were trying to help me get started. But Glover was a partner in a law firm downtown called Isham, Lincoln and Beale, under the former governor of the state of Illinois, Governor Ogilvie.
Yes, sir.
So they brought me to Governor Ogilvie, who, I think it was Nixon, wanted to make him head of the FBI. He turned it down. And Glover said to Governor Ogilvie, Farrakhan is trying to rebuild the work of his teacher, and there's talk about assassinating him. What would you advise him to do? Governor Ogilvie looked at me and said, Farrakhan, I would stay in the public. Keep on speaking and getting people around you. That would make it more difficult for you to be assassinated. I thanked the governor and went home to my humble abode, my poor wife and family, and nervous about what their husband and father was trying to do. And I sat down in a chair. I had a refrigerator at that time that had a push button door. You push the button and the door would open, and the refrigerator looked brand new because there was nothing in it. It's true. And so I started thinking on my teacher. And this is who I want to represent to President Trump today, because my teacher, a messenger of God and Messiah, was so wise that he could teach me in a crowd. And nobody would know what he's saying, but he's saying it to me, and I wouldn't know what he was saying. But the seed was planted. Let me give you an example. I was sitting with him one day, and he's carrying on a conversation with his laborers. And then he looks at me and said, "Brother, when a seed germinates in the earth, it sends a root down long before it sends a shoot up." And he went right on talking. So after I left Governor Ogilvy, I went home, and in the quiet of a room, his words came back to me. Go underground and work without being seen. And for 7 long years, I went underground. And I didn't surface until Reverend Jackson wanted to run to be president and asked me to come by his side. He said, "Farrakhan, you can't deny the people what you know. Speak." And I have to tell you, it was Reverend Jackson that brought me out of hibernation. And my first interview was with a young lady named Jamie Gangel. I think she was an NBC reporter. She asked me questions. I gave her straight answers. And then